Censoring the facts turns our children into idiots. They claim it's for our safety. I'll tell you what it really is. Removing information that empowers all the citizens. The truth doesn't damage points of view that are legitimate. They're trying to change amen to amen and win.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this very special edition of Dion's Daily Dose. Today, we are joined by my lovely wife, Liz. As you know, we'll talk about the campaign stuff at the end real quick, fill you guys in, give you an opportunity to learn where to learn about me, her, and other people on your ballot. More importantly, though, I want to talk about who is on the ballot, not specifically the person, but all these positions that you go in, you get your ballot, you're looking at it, and there are tons of positions on there. Cut in.
Right, go ahead.
No, I thought you were raising your hand like you were in school.
No, I was waving at the people that are saying hi. So hi, Jack. Hi, Sean.
Yeah.
Polite. That's the polite thing.
Is it though? Is it really? So look, there are tons of people on the ballot. Liz actually, she has the full list of the ballot so that we can give you kind of a step-by-step breakdown of what these positions are, what they do. We're not going to cover president, U.S. Congress, or U.S. Senator. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We generally know about the U.S. Congress. We are going to touch a little more locally, though. We're going to talk about all the other ones, state reps, state senators. Governor's not up this year, but we are going to talk about the rest of them. So
It doesn't matter what county you're in, really. We're going to look at LaPorte and Porter. But if you're in Lake or St. Joe, there's probably a combination of these offices that are up on your ballot. So you'll at least know what these offices are. And then you can get information about who's on your ballot at your county website. Usually like some election and who's running. You might see the ballot look like it's going to look when you go in to vote, or it just might be a list. But there should be these positions in pretty much every county, I think, this year.
Yeah, pretty much all of these are going to kind of filter back and forth between your county may or may not have a couple of positions that aren't on there, a couple of positions that are. Before we get started, just running down, I do want to say that the Republican and Democrat parties flip each voting session on their precinct committee people. I am a precinct committee person. My wife is my vice. So I am not up for re-election this year, but Democrats are. Their precinct committee people will be on the ballot this year. Next time in 2024, I will have to rerun again. Now, one thing that both parties do share are delegates, and we'll cover those in a few minutes. You have the list of ballots, so ballot positions. So if you like,
why don't you start by explaining what a precinct person is, in case you have any viewers that are going to pull a Democrat, because you have to pull either Republican or Democrat ballot in the primary. You can't vote for both. So
Indiana does it in this way, whether we agree or disagree with it. It's just the way that it is. If you decide to vote in the primary, which, let me just say, I urge all of you to vote in the primary. One of the reasons why we're doing this show is so that you can understand exactly how important primary voting is. But let's start with something fairly simple, and that is a precinct committee person. So in 2020, I ran for precinct committee person, and I won. What does that person do? Who are they? They are your official contact with your party. So Republicans, you would talk to your local precinct committee person. Democrats, same thing. You would talk to your local precinct committee person. What they're supposed to do, and what many of them do, is to take a candidate around their neighborhood, introduce them to their neighbors, talk to them. Obviously, it used to be a lot more neighborly than it is now. People knew each other. They spent a lot of time with their neighbors, etc. But even so, today, one of the other functions that precinct committee people do that is very, very important is they actually vote for the chairman of the party, local. They vote for various bylaws. Do they want this? Do they want that? Precinct committee people as a group, they determine the direction of the party. They determine what's going to happen, what they're doing, things like that. Anytime something's up for a vote, it's the precinct committee people that vote for it on a party level. Now, another thing that the precinct committee people do is they're supposed to keep track of who in their neighborhood is a registered Republican, so that they can introduce people, but also so that they can invite them directly to various functions and whatnot. I will tell you that my neighborhood does not have many Republicans. I have a very easy job. Let me be clear too. Precinct committee people are volunteers. They don't get paid. It's an unpaid volunteer position. It's not glamorous or anything, but it has a lot of effect on the direction of the party. Do you want to talk about delegates now, or?
Well, if you live in LaPorte County and you do pull a Democrat ballot, there are 37 precinct people that you will see on the ballot. You just can only vote for where you're at. So there's a lot, and there'll be a lot on the Republicans next time. So where are we going to start with convention delegates? Yeah,
let's go ahead, and since we're already there, let's cover delegate.
All right. So depending on where you live, you're either District 1 or District 2. And what you're going to do is in District 2, you can only vote for 9.
Well, hold on. For those who are fairly local watching us, for everyone else, you would have to find out what congressional district you're in, and I'm talking about U.S. congressional district for your particular area. If you're in Northwest Indiana, she's correct. You're either in 1 or 2.
So you're going to see vote for 9, vote for 18, and yeah, you can literally vote for as many as you want, not to exceed the number allowed. And it looks like for state convention delegate District 2, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 people. And then for District 1, there's a lot. There's a lot.
There are.
So, hey, more votes for me than him. But what they're going to do is they are going to go down to Indianapolis one of the weeks in June. And they are going to meet the candidates for Secretary of State. If I forget one, fill me in. I might forget one. Secretary of State, State Treasurer. There's more that I just forgot. State Auditor, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it's Auditor.
Auditor. Last time it was Attorney General.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do is they're going to be the ones that decide who goes on the ballot for the general. So, like, for example, Secretary of State, there are 3 of them. Whoever gets the most votes is who the Republicans will put on the general ballot in November. It doesn't get voted on by you or me in the primary. It gets voted by the delegates. So it's a really important position. People, before I knew what it was, I would just be like, okay, vote 9 people. Usually the people that are running, not usually, but a lot of the people that are running for convention delegate in both districts are either running for another office or have. So you can at least recognize those names, see who you'd want to vote for and who you wouldn't, because it's important. If you just willy-nilly pick people, they might willy-nilly pick who ends up on that November ballot. So state convention delegate is important.
Very.
You live in social media age, usually you'll be able to see a political or personal Facebook page. Check these people out. There's a lot of them. Same thing for Democrats. They get the same amount of people. Each state's different. They get the same amounts. And you would vote for who you think, or you should vote for who you think is going to best represent the best pick.
Yeah. So here's an example. In 2020, the Republican primary was very large with attorney general candidates compared to normally you have maybe 2 to 3. I think we had like 5. We had a few of them. Yeah, the delegates, of which I was one, are the ones who voted to determine who was going to be on the ballot in the general election, right? So we ended up with Rokita versus the Democrat in November. But had, for example, the delegates all voted for someone else, then it would have been someone else on the general, and maybe they wouldn't have done so well. And we could have had a completely different attorney general, one who wasn't doing the things that Rokita is doing. That's why primary voting is so important. It's we're going to stress that, but it's because it is. It's because if you don't give these people the opportunity to get on the ballot, they're not going to get there. The people who you really want, in my opinion, who you really should want to represent you are the people who don't have the millions of dollars that some of these people have to get their name out there. They are regular people like you and I, and they will do the right thing when it comes to voting.
All right. So since you made me jump all the way to the back of the ballot.
Take a minute and get back in order. I just figured since we were already there.
We're going to go from back to front.
Okay.
Because I think, too, a lot of people don't pay any attention to a lot of, I didn't either. So, let's talk about Township Trustee and Township Board. I think a lot of people are familiar with Township Trustee being, oh my gosh, I lost my job. I need help paying municipal rents. Go to the trustee's office, apply and get aid, which they do. And they are a huge part of your township. LaPorte County has like 20 townships. They are the ones that if you need help, always go to them first, because even if they can't help you, a good township trustee, and I work with them professionally, should say, you don't qualify for financial assistance from me based on, and there's a lot of rules that bind them as to who they can help and who they can't. But I do know these resources. Let me get you in line with them. So if you're ever looking at, rent assistance, utility assistance, food assistance, even finding jobs, start with your trustee first, and that should be your first line of defense.
Right, but the trustee is actually what they consider the last resort. You have to try other agencies and family members first. But here is the list that the state law has that requires the township trustee to perform the following duties. They have to keep a written record of official proceedings. They manage all township property interests. They keep township records open for public inspection. They have to attend all meetings of the township legislative body. They receive and pay out township funds, examine and settle all accounts and demands chargeable against the township. They administer township assistance, as we talked about. They perform the duties of fence viewer under IC 32-26. I'm not sure what a fence viewer does.
I know. So let's say me and you are neighbors, all right? And I put up a fence, and you are unhappy with it. You think it's too tall, too short, on your property line by this much. You would go to the trustee, and they would actually come out and view the fence and measure it and look at it and make sure is it right? Does it need to be fixed? That's what fence viewing is. And also, I believe they're supposed to check all the fences to make sure that they're how they should be. So they go and view the fences.
So they're like the fence police.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're the fence overseers.
Yeah. They come and check the fences. I mean, they view. They don't just view, they check, apparently. They provide and maintain cemeteries. I actually didn't know this. I always wondered, who was in charge of the cemetery? I didn't know if it was the cemetery itself, but apparently Indiana Code 23-14 says that township trustees provide and maintain cemeteries. So if you have a loved one in the cemetery, and let's face it, the vast majority of us do, if the cemetery is not maintained, it's the trustee's fault. Blame them. They provide fire protection under IC 36-8, except in a township that is located in a county having a consolidated city that has consolidated the township's fire department under IC 3631-6.1. What that means is Michigan City has a consolidated fire department. That means they cover all of Michigan City. It's not just Michigan Township. It's also another township. If they work together, then it's no longer the trustee's job. It is someone else's job. They have to file an annual personnel report under IC blah, 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 provide and maintain township parks and community centers, destroying detrimental plants, noxious weeds, and rank vegetation. Now, this is interesting. I actually didn't know this. According to Indiana Code 12-20-16, providing insulin to the poor. Now, I would like to, personally, I'd like to know more about that because I know of a number of people who cannot afford their insulin. Thank you very much, government. And could really use the help with this. I wonder, is this just an extension of the other thing that they do, or is this a whole separate thing? Do you know, babe?
I don't. I have never heard of that before either. It's something that, definitely ask your trustee candidates about, but I did not know that trustees handled insulin.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm gonna look this up while we continue because that's very interesting. But and then finally, performing other duties prescribed by statute. Now, it had mentioned earlier about attending all meetings of the township legislative body. Now, you think of the trustee and you think of, the person that you go to get assistance with, but I guess I knew, but I didn't know that there is actually a township legislative body, and that's the next position.
Township Board.
Yeah.
This is basically who the trustee goes to and says, here's my budget, here's what I'm working with, here's what I want to do with it, and they approve or deny that budget. So they have to be in tune with what is going on in their community just as much as the trustee to know, is this budget appropriate? Do we need more? Do we need less? So in some places they call them township advisory boards. In LaPorte County on the ballot, it just says township board member. I have seen signs and Facebook. I kind of like that before people looked at this election, this office as meh, it's not important. And now we're seeing individuals on having their campaign Facebook pages and signs and events because they realize that it is important. So you may see signs saying advisory board, township board. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Township board, township advisory board, they're the same thing. And she summed it up quite well. They basically hear the trustee's budget, say yes or no, and then there you go.
And I believe every township, I could be wrong, I believe every township trustee that is sitting currently is running for re-election. So
yeah,
if you see that your township trustee maybe isn't doing what they're supposed to do and they have a primary candidate that's running, I don't believe there's any opposed on the Democrats. There may be on the Republicans, I'm not sure. But if you see someone not doing the job, look at the primary candidate and throw your support behind them because township trustee is super important.
And Paul says township should be eliminated. Now, I don't know. I'm going to be the first to tell you, I don't know enough about that to make a decision about it. But I will say this. I get elected. It is something that I will definitely learn a lot more about and see what would be best for the people of my district. That's something that's going to be determined on a state level. Your township is not going to be able to vote for whether or not to get rid of themselves, I don't believe. But that's why it's little things like that as well, Paul, that are so critical in the grand scheme of things. It changes everything. If a township is eliminated, then where are these people going to get assistance? Where are they going to go to get the help that they need? And we're not talking, I want to be very, very clear. Obviously, I'm a Republican. In general, Republicans believe in, or at least real Republicans believe in limited government, assistance, but assistance for you to get on your feet, not consistent handouts. When I was a kid, my mom was on public assistance. I know about food stamps. I know about those green NIPSCO bills. I know all about the Township Trustee's office. We were a regular site, and it wasn't because my mom was lazy. It was because my mom was disabled. A lot of people that get Social Security do not get enough, not even close. So just bear that in mind before we, especially, we're going to have a guest on at some point, I'm sure, who is going to say the welfare system is broken. We need to do away with it. These are things that we need to keep in mind. Not everyone on welfare, I wouldn't even say half the people on welfare are there because they want to be. They're there because they have to be. So moving on to the next position.
Okay, so the next position after Township Board, I'm kind of reading the ballot backwards. We have County Council.
Oh.
In Porte County, there are two, everything's staggered.
Mm-hmm.
So last election, they had two commissioners that were up for re-election and one wasn't. This year one is and the other two aren't. So now we have two positions for County Council, District 1 and District 4 that are up for election. And I know in the Democrat side, it is uncontested. It is contested in the Republican. So there are two individuals for each District 1 and 4 that are running. So what they do is they are the purse strings of the county. They are the ones a commissioner can say, hey, we want to start a drug enforcement advisory board and we're going to need $10,000 to do it, for example.
Right.
They say, yes, no, and they fund it. If they don't want to fund it, it doesn't get funded, and it is not that person's fault. It's just the council didn't fund it. So they control the purse strings, they control the budgets, they control how the money is spent, they control how the ARP funds are spent. Yep. They are the pocketbook of the county, no matter what county, Porter County, LaPorte County, Lake County, that's what it is. For the county, they control the purse string.
Yeah, your county council is very important. You know, all of these are, but obviously your county council is directly responsible for how the budget of the county is divvied up. They're the ones that are responsible for, now the commissioner's office, which we'll talk about in a moment, does the hiring for certain positions, but the county council determines the salary for those positions. Mm-hmm. So if there's a lot of hanky-panky that can happen, but in general, if a county council doesn't want a position filled, they can make the budget for that position so low that no one's going to want to do it. Again, there are two positions, two districts that are up for election this time. Both of them have primary challengers. We're actually going to have at least one. So far, one's confirmed. We're going to have a county council member on the show, and he'll be able to tell you more about that. But
all right. So next up would be county commissioner. That's happening in both Porter and LaPorte County. Mm-hmm. For both sides, Democrat side in LaPorte County is uncontested. So whoever wins the primary in an uncontested race is going to the general.
Yep.
It is contested on the Republican side for commissioner, and there are 3 people running. What the county commissioner does, the way that it's been explained to me, that's the easiest way, I think, to explain it across the board, is they're the executive branch. Mm-hmm. They're the policymakers. They make appointments. They take their plans and say, this is what we want, just like the president does, and gives it to the council, which you could think of as Congress. Let's make this happen. So they're the policymakers. They're the ones that have the biggest voice, the biggest potential influence, good or bad. Mm-hmm. They have the biggest audience in the county. So they are the executive branch, the policymakers of the county.
And I just want to interject real quick. So in the last legislative session, one thing was done that was super important. A lot of people didn't quite realize it because maybe the effect didn't happen right away. So one thing we did in Indiana is we made sure that things like health department mandates would be handled not by the health department. They could recommend, but ultimately it was the commissioners who decided. It was county government, commissioners and council, who decided whether or not to implement those. So let me be very, very clear. When you go into the ballot box for the primary, you are choosing someone who may or may not feel the same way you do about your personal health, about your decision, your right to make your own decisions regarding your health. And that's why these things are so critically important. Now, I don't know how the other people on the ballot feel. You guys know Liz is running for commissioner, so she can just sit there for a moment and let me say this. I don't know how the other people that are running against her feel about personal freedoms. I don't know how they feel about whether or not it's okay for the health department to overstep and issue demands to the citizens of the county. But what I do know is my wife believes your health is your business. You make your decisions. So choose wisely.
So, like Dion, like you said, if we come into another situation in this upcoming winter where they decide COVID's back or the flu or chickenpox or whatever, we're going to do mask mandate. We're going to do county curfew. That is from the county commissioners. That's decisions that they make.
Right.
So that's why it is important.
Yeah.
All right. The next position going up. So I'm going from the very end of the ballot in LaPorte County to the very first thing you'll see.
Right.
Is county assessor. There's one candidate on Democratic side. Let me pull that up. And then one on the Republican. So I don't believe really that you'll see much of a campaign on those until May 4th, when the primary season is over.
So while you're looking that up, the county assessor is the public official that's responsible for determining the value of properties for tax purposes, right? This position is also known as county appraiser in some areas or states. This official organizes regular evaluations of properties throughout the county used to calculate property tax obligations for residents and businesses. Also, they maintain property records, deeds, other documents related to county properties. The selection process for county assessor varies by state. Some are elected by the public, others are appointed. So here they're on the ballot.
Right. And the Democrats have one candidate, the Republicans have another, have their own. So they are uncontested, so they're going to the general. Something to keep in mind with assessor is they're the ones that determine your property value. So if they assess it wrong, then we deal with property tax. If they assess it too high, you're paying more property tax and having to battle that out.
Right.
If they assess it too low and you try to sell it, you're going to get less money and you have to battle that out. So it is very important that whoever is elected to assessor knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
If there are some positions on the ballot, and you'll see a lot of them come up in 2 years, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in 2 years, there is a certain technical skill and knowledge that you have to have. You don't want to walk in to county assessor not knowing what a property tax is, how it works, having no experience, being horrible at math, and say, elect me. So certain positions do require certain skills and knowledge.
Yeah. Obviously, you don't want someone who's assessing your property who has no idea how to count, no idea how to add, no idea about property values, no clue what they're doing. I mean, they could look at your, $110,000 home, for example, and say, it's worth $35,000. Now that's going to create all kinds of issues for you. Just like if they look at it and say, it's worth $300,000, your property taxes are going to skyrocket. So it's really important, especially some positions are really important that people have the right set of skills. Other ones, well, let's face it, a trained monkey can do it. Or
county surveyors coming up next election, they have to have certain licenses to survey land. So those certain positions are important to have certain skills.
Yes.
So the next one is a big one, especially Porter County has the same race, but you will see signs if you live in LaPorte County of all sizes. It's sheriff.
Mm.
The Democratic side is running 3 candidates. The Republican is running 2.
Yeah.
So they are both contested. If you drive through LaPorte County, you're going to see signs and signs and signs.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff is a very important race. It's a very important position in county, whether it's Porter, Lake, LaPorte.
Yeah.
I know Lake County is running their sheriff election. So is Porter. So is LaPorte.
Mm-hmm.
And we pulled up some information. Dion has why sheriff is important.
Yeah. So the sheriff is one of, if not the most important county position out there. It is the only elected position in all law enforcement positions, right? Across the entirety of law enforcement, this is the only one that's elected. They get 2 terms max. The idea behind the election of a sheriff is that the position is subject to a higher degree of direct accountability from the population that voted the individual into office. The sheriff's office is not directly governed by county board, supervisors, or the mayor, but the department budget is controlled, usually by the county commissioners. It's an interesting balance of power, and unfortunately, in some cases, this lack of budgetary control and oversight can lead to a loss of support for the sheriff's department. Sheriffs are elected to a variety of term lengths ranging from 2 to 6 years, and the majority of states electing sheriffs allows them to run as partisan candidates, Democrat or Republican, or Libertarian or Independent. This electoral process allows voters to have more control and say when it comes to their local law enforcement decisions, as the sheriff often has some jurisdiction over police operations. Now that's the official, there it is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how important sheriff is that wasn't in there. During the primary for sheriff back 4 years ago, I believe it was 4 years ago, candidates were asked, especially we've seen, remember what happened in Virginia, other places, the United States government is trying very, very hard to ban certain types of weapons or ammunition. Sheriff's candidates were asked, hey, if the federal government says you can't have so-called assault weapons, you can no longer own an AR-15, are you going to abide by that? Some of these sheriff candidates openly said, well, if that's the law, then that's what I'm going to do. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the sheriff is the last line of defense against overreaching federal and state power. Your county sheriff needs to be a freedom-loving patriot, period. Nothing else matters. They can learn other skills. They can learn how to manage this. They can learn how to manage that. But if they have it in their mind that the federal government runs things, then the federal government is going to run your county.
Another thing, they run the county jails, but the commissioners are actually the ones that are responsible for the buildings. They're the ones, a sheriff is the one that can decide, I'm going to do DUI checkpoints. No, we're not going to do DUI checkpoints. Our current sheriff has said, no checkpoints. He's leading in LaPorte County. So we have another sheriff coming up. How do they feel about DUI checkpoints? You hear, oh, well, those are good. Oh, that's entrapment and everything in between. When you have LaPorte County said, if you got caught after curfew, back when COVID was COVID, and if we caught you after curfew, you're going to get tickets. Our sheriff, our LaPorte County sheriff said, if there's a reason to pull you over and you happen to be out after curfew, we're not going to go and patrol and look for people, adults breaking curfew. So sheriff is very important, and how they run their sheriff's department. Do you have a sheriff's department that's in touch with the community? Or do you have one that's all about the tickets, the numbers? It's really important. So that's sheriff. Moving up, we have prosecuting attorney. It is uncontested on both sides. So we have one Republican and one Democrat going to the general. And prosecuting attorney is extremely important. And Dion can tell you why.
So, look, prosecutors are the single most powerful individuals in the American criminal justice system. Everybody wants to talk about the Supreme Court this and Supreme Court that. Your county level prosecutor is the most powerful official, period. The decisions they make, particularly the charging and plea bargaining decisions, control the operation of the system and often predetermine the outcome of criminal cases. Prosecutorial power is vast and unrestrained, and the mechanisms that purport to hold prosecutors accountable are weak and often totally ineffective. In addition, the most important prosecutorial decisions are made behind closed doors, away from public scrutiny, and thus immune to public accountability. The most remarkable feature of these important, sometimes life and death decisions is that they are totally discretionary. The deficiency of prosecutorial discretion lies not in its existence, but in the randomness and arbitrariness of its application. Even in prosecution offices that promulgate general policies for the prosecution of criminal cases, there is no effective mechanism for enforcement or public accountability. Self-regulation by prosecution offices is largely non-existent or ineffective, and the United States Supreme Court has protected prosecutors from both public and judicial scrutiny.
You know, so many people say, oh, I want a attack dog prosecutor, one that's going to go after everyone and get all the criminals and put them in jail and get them. That's good. They have to be able to apply the law fairly. You also could be a person that one day is standing in that courtroom, and do you want that attack dog prosecutor if that's not applicable? Look at how they apply the law. Look at how they view how they apply law. Is everything a death penalty case? Is nothing a death penalty case? Really get to know your prosecuting attorney candidates, because they are so important, because it could be you or your family one day wanting the prosecutor to go after them, not wanting the prosecutor.
Mm-hmm. And it belies a larger underlying problem here, and that is when you go in and you choose prosecutor, most of us, myself included, in previous elections had no idea, A, how important this position is, and B, whom I was even voting for. A lot of times people don't do their research on some of these critically important positions. Regardless of how you feel about the man, George Soros has poured billions of dollars, hundreds of millions at minimum, into various prosecutors' races around the country. And as such, the American criminal justice system is seeing a shift. Now, maybe you're in favor of this shift with cash bonds going away and people being released that are accused of violent crimes. Maybe you're not. The point is, the prosecutors are the ones who determine whether that's going to happen or not. And you need to be informed about who these people are. Look up what they've said, how they're acting on social media. Contact them directly with your questions, because this is a very important position. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, look, I'll be the first to admit, I don't really have a preference yet for the people that are on my ballot. There's no one to choose from in the primary. There's one Republican running for prosecutor and one Democrat running for prosecutor. The Democrat is the incumbent. I'm talking about LaPorte County. So I can look at his record. The other person, I cannot. I'd like to have them both come on the show and explain where they're going to fall on certain decisions. But the reality is, if they don't, all I can do is do my research, look into them, read about them. Experience or belief system. Sometimes that's all you got.
I know that in LaPorte County, both the Democrat and the Republican candidates for prosecuting attorney have both been on Sound Off with Nate Laux. So if you go, you can find the podcast on Facebook. I want to say the Republican candidate was last week and the Democrat current incumbent was this week. Take a listen, check out their Facebook, check out their website. The incumbent, you see there's a record. So you can look at the incumbent's record and say, oh, I think he's doing a great job. Oh, I think he's doing a wonderful job. And look at that. And,
or I think he's trash and I want to get rid of him. Either way, you have to figure it out for yourself. Moving on.
All right. So moving up, we have state rep.
Okay.
LaPorte County, there are three. District 20, District 9, and District 7. District 9 is unopposed, so he's going straight to the general. He's an okay guy. I mean, he's hard and stuff, but District 7, and the maps have all shifted and changed, and they were wonky, and then they got a little bit better. So who your state rep is now is going to be different, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll be different.
Well, maybe. It depends. So look, in the last session, it was time to update the maps. Every 10 years, they have to draw the boundaries for both United States Congress and state representative and senators. So they drew the map, and it changed. Certain areas are the same, like the Michigan City proper is District 9. It's still District 9. It hasn't changed. But you get west into Chesterton, and the line has moved. I have posted the link to the two side-by-side maps on Ballotpedia. Personally, I think that's the best resource that I've been able to find. But ultimately, you will be able to vote now in the primary and the general for the person that's going to represent you in January. So even if your map has changed, you're going to vote for the person that will represent you next year when the maps do change. State reps, you guys should know by now, state reps are critically important. They're the ones who pass the laws. They're the ones who determine the state budget. They're the ones who, this constitutional carry bill that just got passed, state reps are the ones who made that happen. The current state rep for District 9 is wholeheartedly against this bill. She voted against it. She voted basically anything conservative she votes against. Anything the other way she votes for. You forgot, Paul forgot Coroner.
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that, and that was like a surprise little tidbit of information that we dropped, but Paul dropped it. Also, for District 20, while there are two candidates on the Republican side running for it, there's no Democrat. So District 20 does not have a Democratic candidate at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to caucus someone. I don't know. But as of right now, if you pull a Democratic ballot and you live in District 20, you don't have anyone to vote for.
Correct.
And the other ones are unopposed. So they're going to the general as well. Mm-hmm. So moving up, we have a state senator for District 4. There are 2 Republican candidates, and there are 2 Republican and 4 Democrat candidates. So District 4, I know, is part of the Michigan City area and then goes over into Porter County more. So interesting.
I want to interject here real quick. The map did change for District 4, very much so. So, like, for example, where I live, Senator Mike Bohacek was our senator. Now, starting, whoever wins the District 4 race is going to be our state senator. Okay. So, if you live in Michigan City, you may want to double check the map a little.
And then tomorrow, that's when you're having one of the District 4 state senator candidates on your show. Right?
Correct. Correct. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I'm actually going to run that ticker so you guys can see what's coming up. In the meantime, Coroner is actually an interesting position. I had thought that Coroner did the medical examining and stuff, but they're the only ones who can arrest the sheriff, which by itself is mind-blowing. But in addition to determining cause of death, which is their primary responsibility, coroners are also responsible for identifying the body, notifying the next of kin, they sign the death certificate, and they return any personal belongings found on the body to the family of the deceased. A coroner may also conduct or order an inquest into the manner or cause of death, and that's actually what separates a coroner from a medical examiner. Coroner is critically important. One of the reasons why is I'll let Liz tell you, but it has to do with the death certificate itself and how it's filled out.
I learned this from when our current LaPorte County coroner was running, her name is Lynn Swanson. She's wonderful. When you are a veteran and you pass away, there's a certain way in order for VA benefits to use maxed out that the death certificate needs to be filled out. Certain things need to be listed, certain things need to be said or not said. I don't have very much details on that, just a general overview. You need a coroner that's going to know how to do that. So our veterans can get their funeral benefits, their death benefits, their surviving family can get what they gave their life for when they joined the military. So it's very important that the coroner be able to do that, as well as also manage an effective department on a very small budget. Coroners don't make a lot of money and they don't have a lot of county budget. So if you have a coroner that can't manage an office, a small office on a small budget, we're going to have problems if you live in that county and the coroner's office is hurting. So it's management's important too. And also have they done this? Because it can be very traumatic when a coroner comes into a home accident and deals with, especially home, family, telling someone they lost their loved one. They have to be able to know how to do that and do that in a compassionate and caring way. Absolutely.
It's I had no idea what all a coroner did. I just thought they perform an autopsy, tell the family, but it's a lot more involved than that. And in many cases, the coroner isn't actually the one who performs the autopsy. Turns out there is a medical examiner, and they are a licensed forensic pathologist. They're a medical doctor specializing in the investigation of violent, unexpected, suspicious, or unattended deaths. A coroner, on the other hand, is an elected or appointed public official whose primary duty is to determine and certify cause of death. Coroners usually work in association with the sheriff's department, another reason why sheriff is so important, and are not necessarily required to hold a medical degree. But to add to the confusion, medical examiners are sometimes called coroners and vice versa. Coroners who do perform medical examiner tasks, such as performing an autopsy, would be required to be a licensed medical doctor, usually a forensic pathologist. State or county law determines the responsibilities of the coroner.
I blame the movies, because how many times in television shows and movies do they say, call the coroner, and the coroner would come, scoop the person up, and then next thing you know, they're in the autopsy with the coroner. So it's two different things, but they're equally as important. And the coroner has to be able to have the knowledge and compassion. So that's coroner. Moving up on the LaPorte County ballot, we have our U.S. State Congress. So
do we cover recorder?
We don't. It will in 2 years. But
no, I mean, but we didn't cover what it was, right?
I didn't.
We covered assessor. I don't think we covered recorder.
No, we didn't cover recorder.
Okay, let's do recorder real quick before we go up. So the county recorder was actually the first constitutional office in county government in Indiana. The United States Constitution provides every individual the freedom and right to own property in their name. That freedom is protected by the county recorder. It is their responsibility to maintain permanent public records of legal instruments involving real estate, deeds, mortgages, liens, leases, plats, military discharges, personal bonds, and several others. So your home that you may own, the recorder is who makes that official. It's their job to keep track of your real estate, your mortgages, military discharge, all of these things the recorder is responsible for. So if you have someone who is inept and not doing what they're supposed to do, I'm not saying that's the case, I'm just saying it out there, they're going to mess this up and you could have all kinds of problems. You could own property that there's no legal record of. You could try to get your military discharge papers. Oh, we don't know where they went. And I've heard horror stories from other locations about things like this. So
look for a person who's detail oriented and also has experience keeping records. That for recorder would be my opinion on who would be a good there. Moving on,
Yeah. Now go ahead.
We have our congressional representatives. In LaPorte County, there are 2 districts. There's 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also Porter County has District 1. Lake County has District 1. District 1 is huge.
It is.
So in the Democrats for District 1 Congress, we have 2. The current incumbent and another individual. And for the Republican side, again, it's a large field again this year. Yeah. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I'm sorry, 1 withdrew. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. There are 6 individuals to choose from. And if you're pulling a Democratic ballot, there are 2 individuals to choose from.
Right. I don't know anything about the people that are on the ballot on the Democrat side. I know a few on the Republican side, but ultimately, critically important, absolutely important. Pull a ballot, whether, if you're left, pull a left ballot, right, pull a right ballot, but just pull a primary ballot. Some of these positions are way too important to leave it up to the kind of people that are going to vote for the person you don't want. Let's just
never, ever, 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 ever vote for someone just because you see them on a ballot.
Yeah.
A lot of times. That doesn't mean you vote, especially for our Congress, our Senate, our president, but we're not doing president this year. So we have Congress and we have Senate. For Congress, there are six individuals. Really get to know each of these people and don't vote for them just because
you recognize the name
or you like their Facebook photo. Really get to know these people because these people are the pocketbook of our country. They control our budget. If we think we're spending too much in aid for this or that or that, they're the ones.
Yeah.
Really make sure that you know who you are casting a vote for. And that is not just because you like their name or, you've seen them before. Really gets you to know what is the meat and potatoes of their campaign and what they're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot stress enough how important voting in the primary is. Many of the people, before you vote in the primary, you hear people say, it's always the same people on the ballot. I don't know why I bother to vote. It's always the same people, this rich person or that rich person. You go in there, you cast your vote. It doesn't really matter, blah, 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 blah. Look, I get it. But the primary is where you matter the most. It's where the decision about who is going to end up on the ballot in November gets determined. If you support regular people running for office, they need your help in the primary. That's the biggest time to get involved. Pull that, hit the button for them, help out with their campaign, whatever you're comfortable doing. But at minimum, go vote in the primary. Some states you don't have to quote declare. Indiana, you can pull a D or an R in the primary. That's it. Pull that ballot for the primary. Learn who's on your ballot. Vote for these people and get involved. And you can see it on the bottom of the screen. Communicate with your elected officials. Ask them questions. Look, one of the things that I learned running for Congress and then state representative is a lot of people have questions. A lot of people want to know what kind of person you are. And yes, they will read your Facebook. They will look at this. They will look at that. But a lot of people will reach out directly. And if you ignore these people, you're setting a bad precedent. If someone can't bother to get back to you as a candidate, what makes you think they're going to do so when they're in office?
And I will say it's really easy to overlook a question in a Facebook comment thread. If, let's say I made a post about Great Danes being the absolute best dog and the only dog anyone should ever have, and you have a question about that, it can get lost, especially if that comment thread is getting a little long or maybe an older post. just shoot that person a message directly.
Yes.
Email them, get that one-on-one, because you don't want your question or your comment to get lost in the thread. And don't be afraid if a candidate comes to your door and they ask you the dreaded question, what do you want to see change? You have their attention in their ear. They're there to hear you. So let it all out. I'm not going to say, disrespectfully or cursing, but if you say, well, I want the zoning to change, I want the coding to change, I want there to be safer neighborhoods, you are going to give them more to think on and develop, and then see if they pay attention, see if they respond.
Right.
It's really important to do that.
A lot of times that is your opportunity to influence policy. When these candidates come and they knock on your door, you can be like, hey, I'm busy, get out of here. And that's absolutely your right. It's your house, your property. But if they ask you the question, hey, what do you want to see changed? Especially if they're an incumbent that has never bothered before to come out. They've never done any door knocking before. They've never bothered to come out. And now all of a sudden they are. Why do you think they're doing that? Well, it's because they're concerned. They're worried. I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is a huge, huge swell in this country of people who have had enough. They are tired of being ignored by the people that they elected to represent them, not rule them, represent them. They're tired of it. My wife and I are two of those people. I'm running for state rep. She's running for commissioner for LaPorte County. I got her info at the bottom. Learn more about her. I'll run mine, but you guys you're here watching my show. You should know who I am by now. If you don't, there you go.
Pay attention. This is how I view it. If you have two candidates that are running for a position, you're their boss. Mm-hmm. I'm their boss. I'm a voter too. It's up to them to, just like you would in a job interview, convince your prospective employer why you should be hired. Never once would you go to a job interview and not have anything to say. Never once would you treat that job interview or that prospective employer person interviewing you as if they don't matter. That's what the primary is. The primary is the first job interview to get to the general. So you're the prospective employer. Ask questions. Ask them what their stances are. Get to know them. Look at if they've run, because we have on both sides, there are candidates who have run for multiple different positions multiple times. Are they staying consistent, or are they changing it up based on the climate of the day or what they think is going to work better? Do they run the numbers and say, oh, I need to be more conservative or less conservative to get what I want? Because if they do that now, they're going to do it then. If they want to share what they're going to do for you in that position, then that level of, I don't want to talk about it, is going to carry into the general and into that position if they're elected.
Yeah, so, absolutely. You're
the boss. This is your first round of interviews. You have the power. And don't forget, we forget sometimes, oh, well, they're leading us. No, they're there to represent you. So find the candidate that you see consistent and you feel has the right ideas to move the county, the state, the city forward.
Mm-hmm. And I really think that sums it up. In general, if you have a candidate who used to say this and is now saying this, what's going on here? Why did they change their mind? Now, I'm just gonna say there are things that I changed my mind on. It happens. There are things that I used to believe that I learned I was wrong about. That happens. But if a candidate's entire attitude has shifted, if their entire presentation has shifted, if they are a very different person than they were the last time they ran for something, if you compare the two side by side and you're like, what is going on here? This person's like completely different. You have to ask yourself why. Put these people through their paces, ask them questions, and this goes for all positions, all the way up the ballot. Now, obviously, the more high profile the position that they're running for is, the less time they have, and the more likely a staffer is going to be the one to answer your questions. But there are the local races. There's no reason these people can't answer you other than they don't want to. If they can't say, I feel like this, or I believe this, when you ask them something, how are they going to be in office? So that's really it. There are, and you know what? That's true. That's absolutely true. There are those who talk the talk and those who walk the walk. And that's really what it comes down to. You have people who talk. And then when the time comes, they don't want to put their money where their mouth is, as it often happens. But
now we have one more position that's going to go for pretty much everywhere. And then there are a couple county positions we forgot. The last position, which has gotten a lot of negative and positive press, is United States Senator. Each party has one candidate going forward. So they're going into the general. They don't have any primary opponent. There's been stories on that. There's been stories on there was and now there isn't, which is why this ties into why voting in the primary is so important. In layman's non-political terms, both parties decided that a rule to run as a Republican or as a Democrat had to be you voted that party ticket for 2 primaries. So you voted Democrat in 2 primaries or Republican in 2 primaries. And it's kind of tricky which primaries there are. So Dion knows a little bit more than I do. Or you have to get a letter from that party chairman. And the logic behind that is, so we don't have flip-flops. So if you are a diehard Democrat or diehard Republican, doesn't matter. You don't have the other party trying to sneak in, a Republican to a Democrat race or a Democrat to a Republican race. It keeps the parties more centrally organized. Now you can run as a libertarian. They have their own, I believe, rules too, but you can run as an independent and vote for whoever you want in the primary. But to be a Democrat or Republican candidate, there is that 2 primary rule.
Yeah. So it used to be 1. You only had to vote in 1 primary, and then you were able to run as a candidate for either Republican Party or Democrat Party. The Libertarians do it differently. The way that theirs is set up, there's a convention and they vote their candidates on the ballot. I don't know that much about it. We're going to have a couple of Libertarian candidates on later in the month. But in general, the reason this was done is because we have a number of people that suddenly pop up on the ballot as, say, a Republican when they have a history of voting Democrat in the past. So do you think that they really changed their mind or what? I know that in Michigan City, for example, the current mayor, and I'm not going to get into any candidates or how I feel about them, but prior to the 2020 election, he was a Democrat. He was voted, or 2018 or whenever he got elected. I don't remember now, but he had run as a Democrat for state rep. He had run as a Democrat for several different things. And then he completed whatever was necessary, whether it was voting in a primary or getting a letter from the chairman stating that he was a Republican. He was elected as a Republican, and now people are unhappy with the way that he's governing. Some are, some are not, but I'm hearing a lot of people say they're unhappy, put it that way. Did they really think that he was going to rule, to represent, to be a Republican / conservative mayor, or not? That's what they're hoping to avoid. And a lot of people that I've heard talk about it as, incumbent protection or something like that. Nothing stops you from running as an independent. There's nothing other than the rules in the Constitution. By all means, go out there, put your name on the ballot independently. But in order to run as a member of a party, that party can determine what the rules are for that. And they have. And it's not restricted to one side. Republicans and Democrats both said, yeah, we want that.
Now, there are a couple county positions we didn't get to. So I'll take this first one because it's the top one on the list I sent Dion, is the county clerk. Porter County's county clerk is up for re-election. For that one, I wasn't able to get, like I was for LaPorte County, which is the actual what this is going to look like ballots. I wasn't able to find that. I was just able to find the positions that differ. So for the county clerk, it is the official keeper of public records for Porter County. The clerk ensures that public records are retained, archived, and made accessible to the public in accordance with all laws and regulations. So like if you went on my case, Odyssey Case Management, to look up your stuff or other people's stuff, they're the ones that would make sure documents are scanned and uploaded. They also support the elections process and handle a variety of transactional services. They are established and regulated through a combination of state statutes, local ordinances and charters, and other regulations. I know in LaPorte County, they also determine where the early voting locations are at. And I believe they do the same thing in Porter County. And what I learned is an early or any voting location has to be so many miles from the most public place. It has to have a bathroom. It has to have a kitchenette. There's a lot that goes into finding polling locations. And sometimes there's a push to get them out of schools. Some people feel that's not appropriate. There's a push to get them out of buildings that are up for sale. We have 2 buildings that they're talking about in Michigan City that are currently up for sale that they don't want to use as a polling location. So the clerk has to find alternate locations, and that can be a second job on top of their regular job. So clerk is very important. It is the ones that help with elections, and they make sure all of your court records are where they're supposed to be. So that is county clerk.
Yeah. Clerk is also responsible for Freedom of Information Act requests for county employees, county transactions. You file a FOIA, it goes through the clerk's office, and the clerk is the one who has to gather that stuff up and do it. So you want to make sure you get somebody who's going to do the right thing.
Yeah. I know in LaPorte County at the last election 2 years ago, it was a very intense race. I believe it's always going to be an intense race. The next position is county auditor. And Dion, do you want to tell them what a county auditor is?
I mean, I don't have the thing. I looked on the auditor. What?
I have it.
Yeah, you do it then, because you didn't put it on the thing you sent me.
I did.
It's not there. I just don't see it. You go ahead. I did a bunch of them, so it's your turn. You do it. You do it.
Okay. The county auditor is a public official that is responsible for maintaining county budget records and other financial documents for county government. Positions can be called a county controller, a county auditor controller, or comptroller. They may be tasked with regular audits of the county's financial records, fiscal analysis for county and state officials, and financial reporting to county government during budget discussions. In LaPorte County, our auditor is a financial professional, and he is very, very dedicated to looking at all of the billings to make sure the county, in his words, that the county is paying what they should. I think we do need to make sure, every county should make sure that if they're getting a bill, I wouldn't pay a bill that I just got in the mail and had no information on. So I don't think the county should either. So the county auditor is they are the gatekeeper to wasteful spending. So that's what the county auditor does.
Right.
Let's see, we talked about that.
I found it right after you said.
I know, because I said it. Couts Town Council is also up in Porter County. Town Council just manages the town. Depending on how big or small the town is different duties, but they are the presiding board over the town. They help with the budget. They make sure projects go through. And Couts is, I love Couts. I love them. But they are a small town, so if you're in Couts, these people are most likely your neighbor. Really stalk them on Facebook, stalk their campaign websites, and if you see them in the grocery store, just like me, I'm at Meijer or Aldi, I think every day because the teenage boys eat a lot. If you see me,
You have to listen. You have to elect us because we need to feed our children. They are eating everything, absolutely everything. We have multiple teenagers in the house, and they won't stop eating. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So you'll see me at Meijer or Aldi because I'm always on the hunt for red bag chicken, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Stupid supply chain issues. Anyway, if you see me at the grocery store, just say hi and grab me and ask me questions. I love answering questions, and if I don't know the answer, I'll be like, let me look that up and get back to you, because I dig research and data and all that weird stuff. But don't be afraid to say hi. I am your neighbor. I am your fellow mom, the driver who, you see at the red light jamming out in her own private concert in her car. So, I'm a regular person. Say hi. Let's talk at Meijer. Let's grab coffee. If you don't want to talk at Meijer, because, I get that. I'm always open to going grabbing some coffee and learning what people's issues are, because there's stuff I learned. Like, I thought ditches clean themselves. I didn't know. Then I learned that you have to clean a ditch. I thought the water that flows.
You need to stop saying that, because it does not reflect well on you when you tell people you thought ditches clean themselves.
Though I share that because so many times people think, oh, I didn't know that, so I should have, and I'm not, shame. No, we learn something new every day.
Yeah.
But
you didn't really think they cleaned themselves. You just thought the property owners, the people who lived there were responsible, right?
I didn't know county was responsible. I didn't know that LaPorte County was, I learned this fact and it broke my heart, was the 5th county. We're number 5, not for good things, but for drug overdoses. So because of the opioid crisis. So when I learned that made me very, very sad. As a mom, when I learned the story, it made me very, very sad. But it's making me a better person. So it's a win. So if you see me, stop me and say hi. If I look angry, it's probably because I can't find something at the grocery store, but I'm not mad. But we're regular people. I think there's a lot of regular people running this year, and it's really, really good. Oh, in June starts the school board election. So that's happening in LaPorte County as well. And school board is basically the governing body for the schools, regardless of how you feel that they need to change one way or the other. Get to know your school board.
Yep.
It's a nonpartisan. It's supposed to be a nonpartisan position. Get to know your school board, because they do things like update textbooks, approve the budget. If you think they should be going on more field trips, if you think we need new biology textbooks, the school board is the one that's going to handle that. Yep. So get to know those school board candidates as well. Mm-hmm. I know Facebook is making it really easy for people to run even a very simple campaign. So even though like my kids think Facebook is uncool and they would never be on it, it's still a really good place to find candidate information.
Yep.
And there's a comment from the reporter. If you can't speak out on controversial issues when running, I don't expect you to if elected. And that's true. You have to express your opinion on something, whether it's a liked opinion or a disliked opinion. And if you're too afraid to say it now, you're not going to talk about it when you're elected, and you're going to do exactly what you do during the campaign is going to bleed over into when you're elected. If you don't want to talk to people, if you want to be a secret squirrel, that's going to happen. We've seen it every elected official that makes promises and promises the world, and then they get elected and then they forget about you. Mm-hmm. We see it all the time. So yeah, talk the talk, walk the walk. And what did I hear? If you're not campaigning in places that make you uncomfortable, then you're not fit to run. You have to go and have those hard conversations and see what you stand for.
Absolutely. So we're at an hour and 15 minutes now, so we're going to wrap it up. I'm actually hungry. I don't know about you, but I'm starving, so I'm going to go get food. Thank you for joining us. As always, my lovely wife is running for commissioner for LaPorte County. She needs your vote in the primary. Go in, pull a ballot.
I want to say this. I have heard people go, well, I can only donate $5, $10. I don't have any money to donate. I can't help. A candidate, if you can't donate financially, a candidate will always take your time, your skills, your back for a shirt, your yard for a sign, your vote, your voice, especially your voice, to tell other people about them, word of mouth. So you can help. If you can't help financially, because it's hard right now. Yell about them from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Put a sign in your yard and maybe go door knocking with them. So you can donate more than just money. That's going to make a huge difference.
Right. Yeah. And not only that, don't think for a moment. One thing that I want to clarify, especially these big campaigns like Senator and stuff like that, cost millions of dollars. So you look at something like that and you're like, my $5 is not going to matter. Local races are a lot cheaper to run than these multi-million-dollar campaigns, and $5 helps. I mean, if 10 people donate $5 each, that's $50. That's several signs. Let's be clear here. Every little bit helps. So hit her up. Most important, vote for her in the primary.
That's 100 signs. If 20 people donate $20, that's 100 signs for the candidate.
Right. Depending on the price of signs. But yeah, in my case, I'm unopposed in the primary. I'm going to the general either way. But by all means, pull that R ballot. Make sure the people you want to see in office are going to be able to be on that ballot in November. Pull that ballot. Vote for the person you believe in, the person you've learned about. If you don't know anybody, just leave it blank. Leave it blank. Look at a position and be like, I don't know either one of these idiots. Then don't vote for any of them. It's okay to leave a position blank. So without further ado, again, yeah, Paul's right. Volunteer, get a shirt. Let's see here.
Get a shirt, get a sign.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
Graphic designer, donate your skills. Donate your voice. Your voice is the biggest thing. Signs don't vote and dollars don't vote. People vote. So the voice is super important.
And you just stay quiet for a moment. I'm going to address something really quick. So I love watching you both duck the issue because the party leadership told you to kiss the ring. So let me just do this. You don't have to be a millionaire to support secret trials for First Amendment activists. All right, so look. Apparently, there was something that happened with this guy who his name is Chris Throgmorton. He came on the show with Joe Haney. He has an active case against the county. I have no idea what the case is about or any of that stuff. What I will say is I support everybody's right for First Amendment audits if you follow the rules. There was something that happened with him and the former party chairman with a phone. Go look up his page, look it up. I have said in as many ways as I can that I support the Constitution. I support your rights. What happened to you was wrong. I fully believe it was wrong. I don't know what more you want, dude. Like, I'm just going to lay it out. Like, do you want me, or do you expect me to host every show and say, this is wrong, to run a banner? I'm not going to do that. I feel bad for you. I support your rights as they pertain to the United States Constitution and the Indiana Constitution. But other than that, I don't know what more you want. And you're always welcome to come and watch the show, to drop a slew of comments. But I'm not going to pretend for a moment that I'm some kind of party favorite or anything like that. That any of that.
Neither am I. The only ring.
I do. Liz. If you're running for commissioner, you should address the current commissioner's endeavors, and she has. She has told you where she stands on it. I have told you where I stand on it. But you are literally involved in legislation right now, talking about it and telling you, hey, this is going to happen. This is not going to happen. I support this. I don't support it. Is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I support people's rights always. But the legal system is where these things are determined. So that's the best I can do. And that, you know what, dude? That's what I told you too. If that's what it takes, if your rights were violated, then yes, sue. That's what the legal system's for. Otherwise, again, I don't know what you're asking for. So unfortunately, we're out of time. So I've offered for you to come on. We can talk about it if you want, or don't. You'll have to wait till after primary season because I have candidates coming on. But you're welcome to join me. We can have a real discussion. We can get it hashed out. I don't know exactly what you're looking for. Every time someone says something to you about it, it's not good enough. So, all right, man. Enjoy. That's all I can tell you. Thanks again for joining us. I appreciate it. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.